So when I heard about 48 Hour Film Project and the idea of just spending one weekend making a movie and having it be done and then actually getting to show it in a theater, I was immediately all in. I was part of a sort of two-man novelty band called Pilotgroove. RC Victorino was kind of my first creative collaborator. He really put the spark into the band of Pilotgroove, the creative collaboration that was Pilotgroove, the initial stab at filmmaking that was Pilotgroove. He's a person that means the world to me, and he's not as involved with our filmmaking anymore, but there would be no Pilotgroove if there wasn't Richie. We did it the first year of New Hampshire, so there was all these like potential filmmakers coming out of the woods in New Hampshire, which was really exciting. And there was like, some really accomplished filmmakers from the seacoast that came out, and there was people like us who just always had this idea that, I'd like to make a film, and this was the perfect opportunity.
It was very exciting. It was completely new. It was like, I don't think when we went into it, we really understood like what it means to make a film in 48 hours. And I think that ignorance was a sweet spot for us, that like, if I had known that, maybe I would have been a little hesitant. I think it also helps that we were much younger at that time, so we had a little bit more energy.
The first three, but especially the first one, were about like learning lessons and catching the bug.
Number one lesson is being a little bit more stringent with your script, because reviewing that first one is very cringy.
What the off me? We thought that we could just sort of improvise lines, but inevitably found that I would fill the gaps in my memory with F-bombs.
Obscenities won't help you now, Max.
I can't believe it was actually aired in the theaters with the audience that was watching it, because it was pretty vulgar. So the second one was My Night. And that was interesting because that was in Brooklyn, so a brand new location and potentially fantastic location because it's Brooklyn, but also a brand new location, so like couldn't really scout too much. But my biggest takeaway from the second one for me was that was the first time I really got to see Ben like actually act with a character, like someone very different from who he is, and like dedicated to that character.
Doobie, Rob. Call me Doobie.
And Robert, Rob. Can I call you Rob?
And Ben's role is very consistent throughout, which I thought was really cool. And so like as I see these little roles he's done, like Donna's New Death is like a great example. It's, I think, my favorite for Ben on screen. I think back to that second time, that My Night, and there was definitely like instances of like Ben was surely like a very good character actor, for sure.
Another thing to say about My Night is that movie is bananas. It's the one that you can go back and find Easter eggs, like Jen passed out in the corner in the background of one of the scenes.
How nobody else noticed me there, I don't know. These days it's something that I would catch.
We also had a real live Rockette cast as a boy in that film. And there's an opening scene where we're like cutting up these vegetables and there's like this nice bubbling pot of stew. And by the time the scene finishes, it's like scrapings at the bottom of the pan. I had no idea if it was something we were gonna do more than once. It was like, I think we could maybe get together this one weekend and make a movie, but I did not think it was gonna be something that would be a part of my life for 15 years to follow. The third of those was The Table, which we shot on 3 mini DV camcorders, recording all at the same time. Genuinely not realizing until we had finished shooting the film that we were going to have to capture all of that tape back in real time.
I've got thoughts about The Table. I've got two main thoughts about The Table. Number one, that story I love. Number two, that kind of story doesn't work for this festival. And that's where I think Pilotgroove really learned from that, is like, humor is a great tool, which Pilotgroove really leaned into later on. So I think that was my biggest lesson, was like, wow, this is sort of like falling flat to the audience. And it makes sense. It's just not the right medium for that, right?
The Table was an exciting movie because it was the first time that we really brought PJ Hewitt in a big way.
A year before I joined Pilotgroove, I was on a date with my wife and unable to go that year, but I was like, hey, this sounds amazing. Keep me in mind for next year. And I don't think I've missed one since.
And then the whole Pilotgroove boat rocked. Richie wasn't able to make films with me anymore, at least not in the same kind of hands-on way that he was before, and in steps PJ. But I had no idea what was going to become of that collaboration at that point.
PJ's great. His vision, creativity, is one of the reasons why Pilotgroove Pictures has done so well every year.
But then also fast forward like a year or two, maybe a few years, and like all of a sudden PJ is going at open mic, like he's doing comedy shows, he's writing comedy, he's got a little notebook in his pocket, he's writing some lines down, whatever. It says a lot about who PJ is as someone who like really wants to like dive into his creativity and is comfortable like being vulnerable. And I think that showcases in the storytelling and the comedy that you see in the subsequent films is like this unabashed comedic, just like you can make fun of yourself, you can just make fun of people around you, it doesn't matter, let's just all be comfortable, we're all humans.
One of the most creative people I've ever met. So he's an asset to any room he's in and certainly any movie he takes part in.
I don't care.
And watching him in the writer's room is a fantastic thing because not only is he a leader in that room in ensuring that the story is funny, but he also is honestly like this is a protector of the process. Like he will ensure that Ben, for example, has the space he needs to do whatever he is. He makes sure that Jay is doing like he's a protector of ensuring that everyone is in a good space and the production itself is in a good space so that the end result is something that we're often proud of and we didn't necessarily kill ourselves to make happen.
And Ben is our rudder and our visionary for all the films. Ben Pierce, he's fantastic, he's brilliant, he edits them, he does everything tirelessly, stays up when I go to sleep. And it's everything when I don't know what to do or where to go, or Ben has the answers.
Just Remember That They're Dead was one of those things where Walking Dead, I think, had just come out, or was so like zombies were fresh, quote unquote, in everybody's minds. Ben had an idea for a buddy film. It wasn't quite what the film was, but it was like those beginning ideas. And it was like, all right, well, let's mix this idea with maybe this zombie idea that we have. All right, yep, we're doing that. And then it was just kind of like off to the races from there.
To me, it delivered as a film, and it just delivered everything I needed as a creative person. It delivered this whole new family of filmmaking friends. That's where we brought in Jason Green for the first time. That's where Jen really got involved in it for the first time. That movie is so special to me.
The ideas just kept coming. We got mockumentary, and it was just right up our alley. The idea of a zombie apocalypse, but that wasn't like so bad.
I don't know if I would have called it a zombie apocalypse. It was more of a zombie inconvenience.
But then, like, okay, we can do this, And of course, we got very ambitious.
It got to the point where it was kind of a big project, and we kind of had like 2 or 3 different filming units.
We had a college, we had the woods, we had a bunch of indoors. We had so many locations, and one of them too was in Nashua or Merrimack at a radio station. The time crunch and the stress of all day was like bearing down on me. You could feel the weight of all the stress.
In 2011, the CDC released a guide on how to...
We got to the radio station, we just kind of calmed down, took our time, and then we spent way too long. We were riffing and going off script.
I think we might have recorded like a 2-hour radio program that night.
Yeah. We did record a 2-hour radio program.
Ethel in Nashua, you've dialed the right number.
I got some dead people here, my God.
You have dead people walking around in your garden.
Yeah, they're trying to pick at the tomatoes.
So we pulled into Dunkin' Donuts, and I was driving, and the girl looked at me and didn't know what to say.
It was just so much fun.
Makeup for 15 straight hours. Jen put the makeup on me.
And trying to figure going and getting like green makeup and toilet paper.
Jen is somebody who is a huge part of our filmmaking team. Since Just Remember That They're Dead, she's been our script supervisor, our sort of first AD, our production manager, and recently she's helped with editing as well.
Jen Pierce, without her, half our movies wouldn't have been on time, they wouldn't have been right, there would have been errors everywhere. It's like the little things that Jen does to bring the whole movie together.
And she cooks.
F you, Night Watch. But when it came to Just Remember That They're Dead, I did all of that, but I was also a major starring role in that movie.
I mean, it's strange. I mean, he's dead. He's a zombie, like in the movies. We have kids. It just isn't safe.
Jen is a very underrated actor in the Pilotgroove stable, and sometimes she takes the acting roles on reluctantly, but she gives great performances.
It's not that bad.
Old hot dog water.
I remember it was a scene with her and Christy in My Night. As I was filming that, I'm like, damn, Jen, like, okay.
We done?
Cash, I think that was the first time we really tried to focus on a style of the film. So I think that was the first time we took that next step.
You always talk like show don't tell, and that's kind of the aspiration. And with films like Split Second and Clear the Cache, I think we got a taste for that. We started to say like, okay, we can do this. Kind of like visual storytelling, a lot of action, a lot of visual interest to the films. But it was hard to do that and also write funny dialogue and make a good solid film.
If we had a couple more of those like new Pilot Groove-esque sort of like writer's room experiences under our belt, I think that the end result of Split Second would have been even more powerful and effective, because then we would have had a little bit more humor in there, a little bit more like polished finish. But I am very proud of what we do with Split Second.
That means it's over.
Not over. Not over. Fast Money with contestant number 2.
That transformation scene, we shot 2 locations, 3 beard lengths, 2 changes of clothes.
Maybe I am just a fool.
Having to have Ben's face shaved, there's actually like an impact. Like you can't grow Ben's hair back, right? So like, because that is a non-negotiable, what other things, what other scenes and script parts do we have to rearrange in order to factor that in?
Everything was challenging in that film. We were shooting in an auditorium that had no audience. We were shooting in cars.
And then of course we're driving, so it's in a real life situation. So horns are honking, or people are yelling, or the driver has to stop the car, swerve around a squirrel or pedestrians. Where can we drive where we can just go straight?
Well,
murder, 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 murder.
A Bloodless Crime seems to be the one a lot of people kind of low-key is their favorite.
A Bloodless Crime is the story of one guy trying to convince another guy to murder his wife.
I know everything about murder. Why?
We had to come up with ways to have a bloodless murder.
I definitely remember Jen saying something along those like, I hope the FBI doesn't look at our search history.
So let me picture it like this. I walk in, honey, I'm home. I know you've been sleeping with your running coach.
A knife? That's adorable. Have you ever heard of forensics?
Okay then, Professor Murder. Why don't you tell me how you do it?
Blow to the temple.
We had some great actors in that one. Those guys are fabulous.
The chemistry between Dan and Carlton as they're doing these scenes.
Stop. You have to hit her from the side. A blow to the temple is a bloodless crime.
Oh, a bloodless murder.
Dan Larson, for some of our early films, was so important.
He's since become like a famous YouTuber.
It's amazing. I'm so happy for him. Secret Galaxy is awesome.
Congratulations to Pilotgroove Pictures for being inducted into the Boston 48-Hour Film Project Hall of Fame. I had the privilege of working with those guys several times, actually. I had never done much acting prior to 2011. Just remember that they're dead. That was the first time Ben invited me to be a part of one of their films. I really didn't have any idea what I was doing. I didn't know how to use my body. I didn't know how to use my voice. It's really a miracle that he even asked me to come back for a second time, but he did. The second film I worked on with them was Clear the Cache, where I really started to get a sense of, you know what, this is something that I could be good at if I just take it seriously. It feels silly sometimes when you start acting and you don't know how to take it seriously. And so it was that second film where I really started to think about the character and the process and how to actually create a performance as opposed to just, moving and saying the words. There's a lot more to it than that. You have to think about motivations. And in 2014, for a film called A Bloodless Crime, really stretched my ability where I thought, you know what, if I really pour myself into these parts, I think I can make something with myself. And since then, it's been a roller coaster. And so I just want to thank everybody at Pilotgroove Pictures for giving me my start. I found this new path, and today I can stand here and say, all of my dreams have come true.
one of the cool things that we've discovered since, I think really like starting with Just Remember That They're Dead, but I don't think this really gets going until, you know, Bloodless Crime or potentially even later than that, is we start to have a voice, you know, and we start to have like these consistent themes that we go back to and like sort of rules for our filmmaking.
Don't just make the best 48 film, make the best film we can. Get laughs, and oh yeah, be on time.
Get it in on time. Get some laughs. Don't be the worst.
There's a very specific thing that I remember from Bloodless Crime, thinking about like the last scene and like what was going to happen in the last scene when they open up the door and they see something in the bed. And I remember Ben specifically like saying like he was a little uncomfortable because what mattered to him was like not just this one singular film, but the experience of Pilot Groove as a whole. Like, who is Pilot Groove? What are we doing? What do we stand for?
You know, we write all night long, deep into the morning, and sometimes I don't know what the film really is until I read it back the next day. And I can remember doing our table reads early in the day on Bloodless Crime, and Dan Larson, who was the lead on that, I could tell that he didn't love it. And I was bummed because it was really like written with his voice. He was the star of it. And I asked him, I was like, hey, you know, like, what do you think about this? What can we do to make it better? And he talked about the ending, and it was like, yeah, this ending, I don't know what it says, and I'm not sure that it says the right thing. And I had to look at it and be like, yeah, it doesn't. It's cheap and it's easy. And I remember we had to quickly rewrite the ending of that film.
I ended up in my acting debut too, where I was the lover under the sheets too, which was actually hilarious. Everyone's got to be a little bit flexible in the best way to get it done, because obviously we're up against the clock.
And I don't know that we put together a perfect ending. The ending of that film is admittedly kind of weird. Had we nailed it the first time, maybe it would have been that much better.
I have no idea.
But the fact that we were willing to go back and say, no, we've got to redo this. We have to make this different. We have to make sure that it's right.
His decision to make it be something that still was risque, but certainly at a point that what he and overall Pilot Groove was comfortable with, it's really interesting to look back and like know that you've done your best to create this library, this catalog, this canon of something that you're proud of.
Bloodless Crime was a turning point for us because it was the last film that we did in New Hampshire. The New Hampshire 48-hour film project unfortunately closed down after 2014, and we were without a home for a couple years.
We have all these talented people in Pilot Groove, as well as all the other filmmakers in New Hampshire, and it was like everyone was kind of left without a home to, you know, create.
We were really sad that 48-hour film left New Hampshire. We had looked into it, and we realized that there just didn't seem to be much hope of it coming back.
Yeah, and I think getting back into it was one of those things where you don't know how much you miss it and how much it actually means to you at the time until it's not there anymore.
When Ben and PJ had reached back out and said, hey, we're going to do Boston, I was a little nervous but I think we kind of made ourselves known right out of the gate with Dawn Is the New Death.
So we did Boston for the first time in 2017 with Dawn Is the New Death, and we arrived on the scene with a bang. I think Dawn Is the New Death holds up as probably one of our best films.
Hello? Person in my house? Am I on a show or something?
It was so sweet and so heartening, and it brought us right back into wanting to make a 48 film every single year.
You know, originally it was this like really grand, elaborate idea about like this whole agency of soul collectors, and one was a middle management, and one was a trainee. And as we dug into it, we realized that like this is just easier to communicate to the audience if we make it death. When PJ comes on screen and he's got the robe and the sickle, and you're just like, okay, I know exactly what's happening here. And then he chokes on nuts.
One take, by the way. One take, choke on nuts. I think Ben's character in that, too, could be one of my favorite characters.
I'm Lawrence.
Lawrence Soto, interim death.
super proud of Ben for his acting in that movie. He ended up winning the Best Actor award that year, and very well deserved. All of his movements, the way he spoke was all different, and it really suited that character and really made that character come alive.
Somebody wrote the textbook manual copy for why Don is going to become the new Death, and it was absolutely brilliant.
If, while performing the duty of administering death, the administrator accidentally administers death upon his or herself at the exact time and place of the scheduled administration, all duty and responsibility of the occupation of death transfers to the intended administratee.
What is that book?
We always write in sort of a writer's room style. I am generally the person that is typing the scripts, but I don't feel like they're my scripts. We have a whole lot of people that put ideas into that stew, and to me, that is one of the most special things about our team.
When everybody's in that room together, you're all collaborating and nothing's a bad idea. If something lands with everybody, then it lands.
I remember, at some point, somebody had the idea for, the 5 stages of grief as sort of just a theme. And the cool thing about the writer's room is I can say, okay, dig into that idea for a little bit. You've heard some of the ideas that we've talked about. How do these fit the 5 stages of grief? And we'll just send somebody away into a corner. And they were able to come back and say, yeah, I think there's a few places where we hit this. And then as we were trying to figure out our last few scenes, we said, okay, we need a bargaining. We need a denial, an acceptance, these things. Some of them were already there in the film. Some of them were these new places that we could just sort of hang parts of the script on.
Don't worry, it's all pretty seamless. Here, come take a look.
You can tell when something's collaborative, and so just like Dawn of the New Dead, where you had so many ideas coming into the writer's room, like that then exudes on the screen as well. You can see that community coming to play, and everyone's getting some sort of enjoyment out of it because everyone was getting enjoyment putting into it to begin with.
2017 and Dawn of the New Death was huge for us because 1, it was our first year in Boston, and 2, it was our first year working with Aaron Campagna.
And you must be the new Death?
Wait a minute, I'm dead?
No, you're Death.
Aaron comes in and he plays Don, and he's just kills it.
When Aaron came in and started acting with Pilotgroove, we leveled up.
He was such an unexpected breath of fresh air to our films. He brings this innocence. He's an everyman. He does so much with his physical acting. Bringing him on board just really changed, I think, the level of film we were able to make.
And then to be in an environment like Pilotgroove where there's so much support and kindness under so much pressure is a pretty amazing experience. Before action, it's kind of nerve-wracking, but between action and cut, it's fun.
Action.
So Casual Causality, we shoot all day Saturday, and we realized that there's a shot we should really get on Sunday. Our thing is, we like to do all the shooting on Saturday.
Fuck you, we don't shoot on Sunday, I think is actually how we say that rule.
But sometimes you have to do some things on Sunday. But we want to do that as early as possible so we can get to editing. And we were shooting at Ben's house, and the grass was like 3 feet tall. It was so long. No judgment, Ben. But the grass was long, and it was just sunrise. It was like 5 a.m. And Ben's starting the lawnmower, and he's mowing his lawn. And I'm thinking about his neighbors, like, well, that fucking jerk over there doesn't mow his lawn for 2 months. And 5 in the morning on a Sunday, he's up there with his flipping lawnmower.
A time traveler who is time traveling for the first time, meeting up with a time traveler in a time in his life where time travel is passé.
Time travel. I know. Pretty sick, right?
That 1 year where we just watched it transfer to a flash drive as time was expiring.
As we're sitting at the bar and watching the bar at 14, 15% and it being 727 and going, we're not going to make it this year.
We had Aaron in a really limited capacity that year, and so we brought some kind of unknown actors.
What are you gonna do? But hey, there's a new person in my house right now. Who's this
Uncle
new
Luke.
person?
This is my friend Thud.
CJ had been part of our crew, and then he brought in his friend Jay, who's done some acting.
Oh, guys, they're about to call the numbers real soon.
All right, let's go.
We brought Shanice in that year to help with kind of the technical side of sound and picture, and that was great.
And I remember with Casual Causality, being in the cafe, the light was just changing so much. And it was so hard to work with. We were blocking sunlight at one point, and then it got to the point where we had to put in our own lights.
The way he sees things through a camera, I just think is absolutely magical.
Hey. Is that real?
And I don't think you're ever going to find a better caveman than Christianus.
We saw John McCaskill for the first time in many years that year. He was somebody who had known from a former life, who joined the team that year, and he's been with us ever since.
What I remember most about John is he's very personable, and he'll talk to you. He'll shoot the breeze with you while everyone's trying to set up the shot.
And another guy that's just been like infectiously enthusiastic. I know I'm letting him down if we don't do it every year.
Of all the Pilotgroove movies that I was in, or even the 48 movies, An Explanation of Loneliness is probably the one I remember the most. Because I was able to be free of dialogue, I think I allowed myself to be more emotionally involved in it. And then watching it was very emotional. That phrase that everyone says, I feel seen. It's a cliche, but it's kind of, I don't know how else to express it, but that was one that is very special to me.
Jay Serene, I have the honor and privilege of calling my longest tenured friend. He and I have been friends since kindergarten.
You know, Jay came in, he was the only one of us that really had a film background. He'd been to film school. We said, all right, you're gonna come in and be our director of photography because you're the only person who knows how to shoot a film. But Jay's continued to have the involvement to not only help the look of the film, but to really like set the visual storytelling for the film. Explanation of Loneliness was cool because it really pushed the emphasis on those things. It forced us to be visual storytellers. I was so happy for him to get to make that film where he could really put his skills on display.
It was just great to be able to kind of put the camera and tell the story with the camera. Not worry about sound, and not worry about lines of dialogue. And there's some level of difficulty telling a story that's silent.
How can we still make jokes? How can we still be us without talking?
Aaron, I think, in my opinion, his best acting is his physical acting.
The facial expressions he's making, he looks sad, he looks lonely, he looks kind of pathetic, and you can understand that.
This one guy who's, is in an office, and the office is clearly watching a Game of Thrones type TV show that he is just not in on. And he's trying so hard to be a friend to his coworkers and to hang out and to have this connection with these people. But I like watching the other characters. I think my character in that, who is trying so hard to impress his coworkers, might be the loneliest person in that film. The Heroics was what we kept saying over and over again is this is our pandemic film.
Yeah, every team was dealing with that, but every person was dealing with the pandemic too. So I don't think it was our best film technically, but it was a film that I think spoke to people.
Effective immediately, all team members must be masked.
And hide this perfect jawline? Yeah, right.
That was the one Pilotgroove movie that, because I didn't have anything happening Friday night, I decided to see if I could contribute as a writer.
One of the cool things about the writer's room is that we can dig into little pockets of the film. And so one of the things that was fun with the Heroics was we knew it was going to be sort of about COVID, and we knew it was going to have some sort of political undertones.
Stop calling it a space virus. Can you hear how offensive that is?
It's really an Earth virus.
To be able to appeal to the different sensibilities of the different writers and kind of say like, all right, Richie, give me something that's serious and thought-provoking that we can layer into this ridiculous superhero script.
My son Parker had a role in that movie. That was his first role at a Pilotgroove film. He was super excited about it and he totally crushed it.
Dad! Daddy?
Let us not forget that the cardiovascularly challenged are people too. They're just dead.
I'm leaving, I'm moving, the fog is too thick, I can hear them, the bad things.
I am not talking about zombies.
Please, if you'll just hear me out. We're doing a retrospective series telling stories about how we learned to deal with the dead. This project needs you, Simon. You coined the term zombie inconvenience.
I was using air quotes when I said that, and surprise, surprise, people started getting eaten to death.
10 years later, after Just Remember That They're Dead, we draw a mockumentary again, and we have a chance to do Life with the Dead. just to be able to go back to this world that was so special to us, to revisit not only, 10 years ago in the world that we created in the film, but like 10 years ago in our own lives. That was a really cool opportunity.
I mean, Life with the Dead, right? It was like, even though we'd all been working together for years, it still felt like getting the gang back together.
You see, Simon, these are the stories that need to be told.
One of my favorite scenes in all of film is the cantina scene in Star Wars, and the thing I love about that scene is you just see all these characters for like a second. You're like, what's that? What is that thing? Life with the Dead is a little bit like that, where we just kind of rapid fire mention things, and you're like, what is Medicare Part Z?
For every pets out there, there's some idiot trying to make them into pets. For every nonprofit trying to help a senior citizen with Medicare Part Z, there's a dozen crooks out there trying to cash in on them. Do you remember the ZFL?
We just couldn't help but dig into the ideas of that universe, about the zombie inconvenience, and like all the different things that would be going on there.
It was a really creative way to tell that story.
From what I looked like 10 years prior with a mostly shaved head and a really tightly trimmed beard, to that initial reveal of popping out of the tent with my hair all crazy and then standing up with my dad gut.
Another thing about Just Remember That They're Dead that really stands out for me is that it was our first time that we made it to the best of screening. We didn't win any important awards or anything that year, but just making it to that best of, just, having a seat at the table was a really special honor at the time.
I would not want to be a judge of the 48. You're judging filmmakers at all different ability levels, at all different ages, and so it's really hard to win the 48, I think. We had been nominated for awards in different places. We had won the editing award, which was really exciting to us. We had won the writing award, which was really exciting to us. And we had won all of these big pieces, but we had never won the big prize.
Hi, this is John Ratzenberger. Hi, George Wendt here. Cheers to all the filmmakers of the 2021 Boston 48-Hour Film Project. Now, the moment you've all been waiting for. The nominees for Best Film are The Background, The Deja Vu Paradox, Flush, Life with the Dead, and The Next Big Thing. And the winner is...
It was a shock that we won because it was like, that was just a movie for us. That wasn't the movie, for everybody that's going to win.
We knew that film was going to be special to us. We didn't really know if it was going to mean anything to anybody else.
We did our thing this time instead of, making the movie for the audience. And maybe that's the key. Things that struck me about Filmapalooza were all the great films.
These are all filmmakers who won their city all around the world. We met people from all sorts of other countries there.
All the movies were so good, so creative, so well made. And it was one of the best films, I think, of the whole festival. Was first, the very first one, the first screening. And I thought, oh boy, we're going to have the worst movie here.
And to have them watch this movie and they laughed at all the right times, all the funny moments, they got it.
We did it. Now, what do we do from here?
Welcome to Cougar Fieldhouse in picturesque Flemingville for the 13th perennial Northeast Regional Floral Design Championship.
Which one of these two worthy combatants will sign their name to the greeting card of glory?
Get Your Hands Dirty was kind of our homage to sports.
Quick backstory. In 2001, Ben Pierce hired me as a camera operator for the Manchester Monarchs American Hockey League team. Through that working relationship, became friends, and then ultimately collaborators in both film and music. But it led me into a career of sports, video, and television broadcast, which I still work. I work for the Red Sox and Bruins and Celtics in Boston College.
Well, Bob, in my day, you really had to play to your strengths.
We all know the language of sports. We all really know the cliches and the way things sound and the way things look in a sports production. So to be able to play in that world and create kind of a TV broadcast as a film, I think it came really natural to our team.
And that's what judges want to see, and that's what'll win competitions.
Well, speaking of those judges, Ozzie Andrews is standing by for the reveal of elements.
It hits everything you'd want out of a mock sporting event. You have these serious commentators. You have some great actors and Ira and Aaron. I did get to play the referee.
Ozzie Andrews now spending some time with that letter from Martin Shatternick, really taking it to heart.
Winner!
Can you believe it?
We've been lucky enough to have some really fine, legitimate actors in our stable. And then we have Greg, who will just play any role, but has low-key managed to steal the show in several of our films.
Greg, beyond anybody, I think, is the one where you can just give this ridiculous task to, and he's like, I'll get it done.
There was a time I was sewing a costume at 2 a.m. with a headlamp in the middle of the woods.
Bring people to the table, bring locations to the table. You need a school, you need a bar. Greg has found that for us. He's brought his wife Mandy into the fold, who's brought all of these people, dancers and children and extras and Ira.
Ben and PJ and Richie and these guys who put this team together and work on these are people I love and care about and would do anything for, so that's why I do it.
We had Kathy Sullivan. She was the receptionist that wound up on the wrong side of a mistaken identity phone call and Fear the Cash. Jacqueline Kachuk. Donna's the New Death was like the third year in a row that we had killed her in some way, shape, or form.
Alright, so
Trustful.
She got killed multiple times in Bloodless Crime. She was the dead hooker in Clear the Cash.
A live hooker. We brought in a new actress, Sandra, who was just so nice and so amazing to work with and willing to do anything.
It must have been, 80 degrees when we were outside shooting the dance number. And Sandra came to me and she had a leather jacket and she had a flannel shirt. She was like, which one of these do you like? And I was like, you're gonna hate me. And that girl sat in a flannel shirt and a leather jacket for an entire day in the hot sun.
The amount of focused energy that comes together from our team.
I call us the hardest working team in show business. And what I mean by that is that for one weekend a year, every single person gives absolutely everything.
And it just increases and builds upon itself year after year.
Still the most surprising part of it to me is that these movies can be bigger than what I put into it. Because I know how much I put into it, and I know how much PJ puts into it, and Richie put into it in the years that he's involved, and it still winds up being something more than that.
Everyone just seems to be like, all right, we gotta move equipment here, and this go to the next set, and people just gather stuff, grab it, go, set up, clean up like we were never there.
People giving up their weekends and giving up everything that they've got going on, making that the whole world for 48 hours, it's humbling.
When's the last time you rocked?
I don't know, the Cherry Blossom Festival?
Ew. Man, look around. When's the last time any of these people rocked? I mean, I haven't rocked since Rosie. That guy has not rocked since the Beatles broke up. We need this, man.
2023, Boston, and this one gets very close.
The bronze medal, second runner-up, You Make Me Wanna Rock!
The last 3 or 4 years, Ben has said to the team, I don't know if we can keep topping it. And we keep topping it.
No one has the passion like Pilotgroove does. And Ben and PJ, they bring that energy, and that energy is contagious.
You made me want to buy another phone. You made me want to cut my arms off. You made me want to cut certain places from certain parts of your clothes. You made me want to buy clothes.
How much Pilotgroove Pictures and 48 Hour Film Project means to the people on our team is something that means the world to me. And it's not just me, and it's not just PJ, it's our whole team.
I'll never forget just the Pilotgroove logo coming up on the screen and people in the audience are cheering.
People cheered when the Pilotgroove logo came on at the beginning of the film. That was it almost brought me to tears.
We've done 7 films in Boston. And we've definitely done our best filmmaking in Boston.
It's hard to believe that it's only been 7 years. I feel like we've been in Boston with this group of people, with Andrew producing forever, because it's such a big part of our lives. But it's a huge honor to be recognized there, and it really kind of pays off all of these years that we know is special. It's special to us, but to see that it means something to somebody else and be recognized on that stage with all those other talented people is really cool.
It's just, I think, a culmination of what we have been building for a decade doing this.
This year, we weren't able to compete in Boston, so we're going to be taking our act to Providence for 2024. But rest assured, we'll be back, Boston. You haven't heard the last from us, and be ready to fight for those awards next year.
And I don't